Hello, MC Bling Daddy here, and welcome back to our series of investigations of using command blocks as one might a high-level programming language such as C# or Java. And we're continuing in this segment our attempt to create a railway at the location of a minecart that we use for tracking. And we had in the past extended our railway in the Z direction, positive Z direction, which is down this way facing our sheep. And then we had continued also extending in the positive X direction, which is off this way. But as you'll see, I've cut that back to where we originally ended with our X direction extension. Because what we want to do today in this segment is to look at using a different method for transferring control from one region of our program, if you will, to another. And we're going to use names for naming, if you will, segments of code. And those segments have been variously called in modern languages methods, and in the past they've been named subroutines. And the way in which it looks is in our command block here. We start off with an execute statement, which basically says we're going to execute something, and it is going to be referenced to, or the location that we're going to start from, is something, an entity that has a name rather than a location. And as you can see, the name I've given it here is loop. And we'll see how that comes into play in just a little bit. And with respect to that entity, we are going to back up one in the Z direction. That would be, in other words, to the north. And the code that we're going to execute is to set a redstone torch north of our entity. And as we will see, that will start execution of a segment of code. So let's take a look at how we can set up an entity that will do what we need to do. And let's take a look at how we did things in the past, which was to place an activated or powered repeater to the south of this command block, which said set a block of air 1 to the south to replace that redstone, that powered torch, powered repeater, so that we didn't continuously activate this block and we could activate it again in the future. So we're going to use the same kind of strategy, but we need an entity, which a command block is not, and we need something that can be programmed and that will respond to some kind of activation. So what we're going to use actually is a minecart with a command block in it. In order to get that to be able to execute whatever's in the command block, we need to use an activator rail. As you can see, the activator rail heads north-south, but we will find that minecarts tend to have a mind of their own. Get that, a mind of their own. And that they will move around in undesirable ways. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this activator rail up in such a way that the minecart will be held in place by a couple of dirt blocks. Oops, looks like I'm in the way. So let's put one here. And so the way that we get our minecart in is to summon it. That's pretty much the only way that you can get a minecart with a command block in it. And we're going to summon it right here where we are. Since it's an entity, it can occupy the same space that we are in. But as I said, sometimes these things have a mind of their own and they tend to move around. So let's see if we can get this thing back in place. And come on, baby. There we go. Okay, now as I said, you can, if you're careful, occupy the same space that they are in, but they are a little bit tricky. So we have an entity. It can execute a command. Let's see what command we want to put in here is, as before, a set block with air, and we want it to be 1 in the northern direction. So X is east-west, Y is where we are, but Z in the northern direction is going to be -1. And of course, let's put in our air. So we will set an air block where we are going to now, instead of a powered repeater, we're going to set a redstone torch. Now the reason we do that is because the command block that's in the minecart doesn't seem to be able to activate itself, to activate things that are nearby. So we're going to set this torch in such a place that it will be able to activate not only this command block, but also a powered repeater that follows it. And the other commands that we'll have for placing dirt and air and so on will be as before. Now there's one more thing though that we'll need to do, and that is to test this out. You'll see that there's some code in here in this command block that will play a special role, but we just want to test this out by having this command block execute the placement of air and so on one time, just for testing purposes. So let's come back here now, and one more thing that we need to do, and that is to name this minecart. Now, to name an entity, we have to use NBT, which is named binary tags, something special for Minecraft that's similar to JSON, which is JavaScript object nomenclature. In other words, a way of describing an object, such as a minecart with a command block in it, describing it and what it contains and other attributes or properties of the thing. And the way that we do that is by using the command entity data. And in this case, we are looking at an entity, and what's convenient about us being able to place ourselves right at that entity is that we can say it has to be really close, within a radius of 1, in fact, probably a radius of 0. But what we want to get out of this is our named binary tags. And without actually specifying anything ourselves, the way you do that is with a couple of braces. So let's see what we get here. And here is our minecart with a command block. And you'll see the top line says the data tag did not change, so there's nothing there. We'll use a slash to get back into our command area. And below the data tag did not change, you look down below that 1, 2, 3 lines to the 4th line, in other words, of red, and you'll see custo, and if you continue on to the next line, it says custom name. Then there's a colon and then a quote at quote. Well, that's the name that it currently has, @ sign. And so we need to change that to, if you remember, loop. And then let's see, directly below that we have well, excuse me, actually you go to the end of the line where the @ sign is, and it says comma, and if you look on the next line, it actually is continued as command, colon, and then we have a quote mark, set block, tilde, 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 -1, error, quote. Okay, that's our command that we put in there just a few seconds ago. So what we want to do then, I'm using the up arrow to go back to our previous command, is we want to actually say custom name and then a colon. Be very careful now that we use a colon inside these curly braces, and the name that we want is loop. Now be careful because these names are case sensitive, which means whether you use uppercase or lowercase is kind of critical. So let's take a look and see what we get. And notice the red down at the bottom says MC Bling Daddy is a player, cannot be changed. Well, that's fortunate because otherwise we'd be changing my name too. And if you look again, entity data updated to is where the white area starts, down below the middle. And if you go down to the first, second, third, fourth line, it says custom name colon, then in quotes loop. That's what we wanted for a name. And then the line below that, below custom name, you'll see command, and again our set block error. Okay, so we're just about to go then. Let's get out of our command mode. So what we expect is that a torch will be set here. This command block will be activated by it and set an air block to remove the torch. And then the torch will have activated this repeater, and so on. We'll move our mine cart, the one that we have out there for measuring our progress, until we get to this test, which again tests for where our mine cart will end up. And so I think we are about ready to go. Let's see, let's test this out one time, and you can see our mine cart is down there. So let's see whether we've coded this correctly. And one time, okay, so one time the entity minecart writable.name, which we know is loop, was found. 3 blocks were filled. Those are the dirt. Block placed, would guess that's probably air, or the rail, come to think of it, because there's already air where the air was to be placed, so that would be a rail. And then we moved the mine cart to its new location. And then the last thing found, again, is for our test of where the mine cart is located. Okay, so it tests out okay. Let's go take a look, and you can see because our comparator is glowing, that means that the minecart was within 50 of the testing block. And let's see what's in our last block here that we need to link back up. Now, is the critical thing. Note that the command here is exactly the same as the one with the button on it that we just pressed, which is to execute an entity, or execute at an entity that has the name of loop, and it puts down a a redstone torch also, just as before. And so basically what we're doing is we are repeating the command that started the loop to begin with, and so we will be calling, in a sense, the loop will be calling itself. Now this is something that is called recursion. It's not a good practice, and the only reason I'm doing it is because I figure everybody is going to want to run out and try this and not necessarily use best practices, which would be to have the last item in the loop call something that would then call the beginning of the loop. Okay, so let's see what we got here. We're going to put down our redstone repeater. And I should add that if you are going to use recursion, you must have a test somewhere within the loop that will terminate or stop the loop at some point. And that's what this block with its test will presumably do when the Minecraft gets far enough. Okay, so let's go take a look here at what happens when we start the loop. And there we go, our minecart is moving. Notice the loop is being repeated. And let's just take a look here and see what happens. So there's our torch being placed down, and we may be in the way there. Okay, so our torch is being placed down, our minecart is being moved out until we are all done, and voila, we've reached that final location that we wanted to. And note that our comparator right here actually is no longer lit, so that our minecart has gotten to its final location. Okay, so the critical thing here is that from now on we will be using names instead of locations to execute segments of our code. So until next time, that's about it. Thank you for watching.